Back of my laptop with all the stickers.
Do you want me to lay it flat? Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Keene. I am the director of the Center for Earth Jurisprudence, located at Berry Law Campus in Orlando, Florida. We are an environmental nonprofit that focuses on promoting the creation of and the implementation of rights of nature legislation, both locally, statewide, throughout the United States, and of course globally. And the reason why I like to accent globally is this is a global issue. This affects every single person on the planet, but what I want you to focus on now is it's not just taking care of people. We want to start to move away from an anthropocentric viewpoint when we address the law. Our law should not only treat how will this affect people, how will this affect commerce, how will this affect how we live our lives. We should start to turn our attention to the rights of every organism on this planet, both flora and fauna, as we are all connected in this giant, beautiful circle of life. If we don't start to focus on these things now, we've already seen the inability to mitigate the negative effects of climate change. We're talking rising sea levels. Obviously, everyone who's been in Miami this week can attest to rising global temperatures as well. So it is my genuine pleasure to be here as we end Climate Week in Miami. We have a wonderful panel today where we'll be discussing rights of nature throughout the world, specifically with our friends from South America who have already implemented these laws into their own constitutions. And as we focus to the future and move towards addressing these issues throughout not only the United States but the world, I would like to introduce the faculty advisor for the Center for Earth Jurisprudence, also from Berry Law, Professor Margaret Stewart. She's an attorney who has worked tirelessly over the last several years to help not only educate and bring to light these very important and crucial laws, but to also focus on her work assisting GARN, the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, and the very important work that they do as well. And they're going to be here speaking today. So without further ado, my dear friend, Margaret Stewart.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. Give me 1 second to get the visuals back up. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much again for having me here. As Mr. Keene said, I'm Margaret Stewart, the faculty advisor of the Center for Earth Jurisprudence at Berry University School of Law. I'm also the director of the Environmental and Earth Law Clinic there, where we assist in real life cases and help clients navigate not only the environmental law system, but also the emerging area of earth law and rights of nature. And as Mr. Keene also said, I serve on the executive committee of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, and I facilitate the legal hub of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. So if these are things that you are interested in connecting with and joining, definitely let me know. I'll have all of my contact information up for a few minutes at the end, and I'd love to talk to anybody about these things while we're here today. So at the center, we advocate for laws and policies and governance systems that are aimed to legally protect the sustainability of life and health on Earth. And we believe that the best way of doing this is by rethinking our legal framework in a way that has a more Earth-centered perspective. So what I'm going to use my time to do today is to just briefly explain the concept of rights of nature and how we utilize this concept in direct and positive ways in order to protect, again, not only the human right to a healthy environment, but also nature's rights as well. And so after that, I'm going to turn things over to Natalia Green, who will start sharing some more specific examples of how the rights of nature has taken hold around the world, and then she'll continue to introduce the rest of our panel, just to give you an idea of what things will look like. Okay, so first we need to start with not just what the rights of nature are, but also what they're not, okay? It's important to understand that the rights of nature is not something that we are granting to non-human members of the Earth community. Much like we as humans possess human rights simply by virtue of being human, so do all the other members of the vast interconnected Earth community, okay? We do not have to do anything to obtain our human rights, and conversely, nature also has intrinsic and inherent rights, irrespective of its value to us as human beings, which is how we tend to allocate importance now, is what its worth is to human beings. So, the reason that we're looking for not only a cultural development of the acceptance of the rights of nature, but also a legal structure that not only recognizes those rights, but also protects them, is because, again, if we use human rights as an analogy, we know our human rights are constantly under attack, right? There are things that we have that we just by virtue of being human, but we know that both legally and illegally they are constantly under attack. And so we need legal systems in place that are going to offer what we call remediation, that are going to offer some sort of remedy to us when those rights are violated. The same is true for nature, okay? When those rights are violated, there needs to be somewhere to go for that remediation. And that's why having these concepts adopted into our legal systems is so important. Okay, and so here we have just a little illustration of, some of the issues that we're seeing right now. Right here we see vertebrate species extinction rates from the 1500s to 2014. And we can see that for hundreds of years, the extinction rates, things were going extinct, it was changing. But it wasn't until right here in the 1900s, which was the Industrial Revolution, where we see this unbelievable spike in species extinction, okay? And so what that tells us is that there's a very strong correlation between human activity and the degradation of nature, okay? We're currently in what we call the 6th mass extinction, and the difference between the 5 previous mass extinction events is that this one all comes down to the behavior of one species. Let you guess what species that was. And we're also in what's known as the Anthropocene, which means that human activity has had such an impact on the planet that it has actually pushed us into a new geological age, and it's one that is described by the negative impact that human beings are having on the planet. So back to what sort of legal ideas we've been searching for to address this. So before I wrap up, I did want to introduce something that's called the rights paradox, which shows the importance of recognizing these rights and not only having the cultural shift of the adoption of the rights of nature, but also the legal shift. Christopher Stone, who wrote Should Trees Have Standing, which is really one of the first academic articles that proposed this idea of rights of nature, he identified what he calls the rights paradox. He says there is something of a seamless web involved. There will be resistance to giving the thing rights until it can be seen and valued for itself. Yet it's hard to see it and value it for itself until we can bring ourselves to give it rights, which is almost inevitably going to sound inconceivable to a large group of people. Okay, so you get into this circle of not seeing something as a rights-bearing entity until you see something as a rights-bearing entity, which you're not going to see until it's a rights-bearing entity, and we just end up in this paradox, okay? So that goes to show the importance of a lot of the developments that we're going to talk about today that are happening around the world, and the impact that that can have in overcoming this paradox. And real quick, I just wanted to introduce what the concept of the Earth Covenant. And this is something that you will find in the book, The Rights of Nature, written by David Boyd. And here he laid out what's known as the Earth Covenant, that was drafted by a Canadian Indigenous lawyer and artist known as Terry Lynn William Davidson, that discusses the responsibilities that humans have towards the Earth. And it includes the following here: respecting that we're all a part of an interconnected world, conserving and restoring the Earth and the species and cultures she nurtures, managing our use of the Earth in ways that maintain her cycles and interrelationships and do not exceed planetary limits, and respecting future generations. So essentially, any sort of legal system that we're building with the rights of nature in mind needs to be built on those ideas. So I'm going to turn it over now to Natty, because I'm sure through a lot of this you've been thinking, this sounds lovely, right? But what does this look like through, how do we implement this? What does this look like? Is it actually feasible? And so what my co-panelists are going to do today is share some examples from around the world of where we are seeing the rights of nature come to fruition, and look at some of the successes and some of the setbacks that we've had in that regard, okay? So again, that's just the information there, but I'll be able to share all of that at the end, okay? And so with that, I want to turn it over to Natalia Green, who is also on the executive committee of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. She's been fighting for the rights of nature in Ecuador for a very long time, and has been really instrumental in a lot of the successes that we have seen there. So we're really excited to hear from her about some of that.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming here. I just want to, of course, thank the Center for Earth Jurisprudence of our university and CC35 and Climate with Miami for hosting us today here. I want to start, and before I talk, I want to show you this animation to share how the Rights of Nature movement has grown after 2006. So 2006, there was like one local ordinance that passed actually here in Tamaco Rural, but it was right after Ecuador was able to include it in the constitution that this movement has grown so much. And if you see the animation, the short animation, so if you want, we can now focus here because I won't be using the screen now. And you can find the animation in our Garden website, so you can see how much the movement has grown, and that's quite amazing. And I want to share with you a little bit about my personal experience before we can talk to this amazing panel. The idea is that we can listen from all of our panelists about their experiences, and then I will be asking a question about how do we move forward the Rights of Nature movement in these two important moments that are coming up, that is the biodiversity COP in Colombia, COP16, and then the COP in Brazil that is coming, COP30 next year. So thank you, Margaret, for the introduction. It's my pleasure. I want to share with you that I've been working with the Rights of Nature for the past 15 years, since we were able to incorporate it in the Constitution. So I was very lucky to be part of the constitutional process when we were including the Rights of Nature. And it's amazing because when we started thinking about the Rights of Nature, we just wanted to start a debate. As much as Javier, you were saying that you want to start a debate in Puerto Rico, we went to the Constitutional Assembly in Ecuador and we said, well, let's start a debate because we are part of nature, we are nature, and why doesn't nature have rights? So let's include this in the Ecuadorian Constitution. If it doesn't pass, at least we would have started a debate. And I remember an indigenous ally that we were with them, and they said, well, we are here, what are you doing? And I said, we have this proposal for the rights of nature, and he said, you guys don't have it yet? And for me, that was so clarifying. It was so beautiful. First of all, to understand that for indigenous people, the Constitution wasn't theirs. So that was very powerful, because nowadays, with a Constitution that recognizes the rights of nature, that recognizes plurinationality, they now use it as an instrument. So now it's theirs. One of the arguments that we had in the Constitutional Assembly was we need to make this instrument a more democratic instrument. It's a very wide instrument, and we need to make it more democratic to include the voice of everybody who's living in Ecuador. And the worldview of our people, you know, fortunately, considers nature as a mother. And that worldview was not included there. So the rights of nature is, in a way, a translation of the indigenous worldview into a very Western instrument that is the Constitution. But then my other analysis about this comment was, it made so much sense. Like, yes, we were very late, and we were very late by not incorporating the rights of nature, and that's why we have such a disconnected world. You know, a world that recognizes that nature, that thinks that nature is a resource instead of a source of life, that thinks that nature is an object that you exploit and not a subject that you protect. And that difference has made this separation, this mechanic separation with nature, has really set up this world with such a polycrisis, such a climate chaos where we are, because we are so disconnected. So we were able to incorporate that in the Constitution back in 2008, which was an amazing victory, and we have seen how the movement has grown. And nowadays, I'm very happy to say that there are 39 countries that somehow recognize the rights of nature. 22 of them have a legal legislation, either only at the constitutional level. Ecuador, hopefully soon, Aruba will be the second country. Then we have national countries. We have Bolivia, we have Panama that have national laws. And we have countries that have multiple cases. Colombia is an amazing case. We have Atiquiwa here from Colombia. There are more than 22 rivers with rights in Colombia. And this is a movement that has legal initiatives all over the world. The Wanganui River in New Zealand, the Bangladesh has all its rivers recognized as subjects of rights. The Mar Menor, a lake in Spain, already has rights. That's the only ecosystem in Europe that has rights. And in Latin America, we have lots of amazing experiences. Cities in Mexico, Peru. We have our latest victory was the Marañón River that got rights maybe a month ago. Wow. So this movement is growing, and it's growing very fast. And there are, as I was saying, 39 countries that now have either legal initiatives or civil society initiatives pushing towards the inclusion of the rights of nature. So what we're going to listen today is pretty much a reflection of when we started the rights of nature movement, not the movement, but when we started GARN, that what the idea is that GARN can push the movement and help network with this amazing growing movement. We felt that we were like pushing this big rock up a hill. It was very hard. Nothing was happening. When we gathered in 2010, we said, this is an idea whose time has come. And it wasn't true. It wasn't right. Like, it wasn't happening. But now we've reached that top of the hill, and it's running very fast, and we're just trying to not grab it, but just like make it space so we can keep growing. And Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, in 2019 said that the Earth Jurisprudence movement is the fastest legal growing movement in the world. So this is something that is happening, and it's happening really fast. And we're very happy to see that growth and to connect. The most important idea for us is to connect, to make sure that this idea is real. I am sharing the perspective of what's happening in Ecuador. In Ecuador, we have more than 70 cases, successful cases for the rights of nature. We have been able to take a frog, a frog that is called the resistance frog of INTAC now, and we have taken that frog to court. And with that frog, we've been able to win and revoke an environmental license of Codelco, the second largest copper mining company in the world. And we have been able last year to win 2 consultations, one to permanently leave the oil underground in the Yasuní National Park, and the second one to avoid mineral extraction in the city of Quito. And that is because we have 15 years of understanding that nature is not an object, 15 years of people saying, of course we are part of nature, and why are we not guaranteeing these rights fully? So yes, we have lots of things to do yet, lots of implementation and guarantee of these rights to do in Ecuador, but Ecuador is definitely this amazing lab to demonstrate that the rights of nature is happening, it's viable, that it can change a system, that we want to change a paradigm where we are not disconnected from nature. So that is what we want to share with you all today. And I want to start that way, and then we can move back. So we are going to start with Javier, and I'm going to introduce you, Javier. Thank you for being here. Javier de la Rosa Lopez is in his last semester of law school at the University of Puerto Rico with a view to begin his master's degree in urban planning. He's currently working as a committee technician in the Human Rights and Labor Affairs Committee of the Senate of Puerto Rico, chaired by Honorable Ana Irma Rivera Lazo. So thank you for being here today, Javier, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. So, good morning. My name is Javier de la Rosa. I'm here on behalf of Senator Ana Irma Rivera Lazo. Senator Rivera Lazo is an Afro-Puerto Rican woman, a lawyer, feminist activist, and human rights advocate. She specializes in economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights. Currently, she serves as a senator at large and the spokesperson in the Puerto Rican Senate for Movimiento Victoria Ciudadana Party. Additionally, she holds the position of chair of the Human Rights and Labor Affairs Committee in the mentioned legislative body. Puerto Rico is a Caribbean archipelago susceptible to atmospheric events that carries with it a political legacy based on colonial relationships of exploitation, racism, and displacement. The passage of Hurricane Irma and Maria in 2017 thrust our country into the global spotlight as an example of the dramatic consequences of climate change. Around the islands, a phrase is echoed in communities that conveys the following: hurricanes are atmospheric events, the disasters are political. According to the final draft of Mitigation, Adaptation, and Resilience Plan for Climate Change, published on April 22nd of this year, 70% of wastewater treatment capacity of Aqueducts and Sewers Authority and 250,000 structures of various types are located in the zones susceptible to rising sea levels and storm surges. In several municipalities across Puerto Rico, the demand for potable water is met through aquifers, which are at risk of becoming salinized. To make matters worse, all electricity generating plants are also situated in areas vulnerable to rising sea levels. The referred plan also highlights that most of Puerto Rico water reservoirs are sedimented, which reduces the country's water storage capacity, making it more prone to droughts. In this context, forests becomes increasingly important ecosystems that offer viable solutions to the challenges posed by climate change. Forests reduce sedimentations, lower temperatures, maintain biodiversity, and contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions through carbon sequestration. The Constitution of Puerto Rico, on its Article 6, Section 19, stipulates that it shall be the public policy of the Commonwealth to efficiently conserve its natural resources, as well as to maximize their development and utilization for the general benefit of the community. However, the reality is that Puerto Rico's legal framework have been anchored in the protection of private property at the expense of the environment and local communities. As an illustrative example, in 2009, the law for reform of the permit process in Puerto Rico was approved. This law streamlined and relaxed the processes for granting construction permits and reclassifying land, which had previously been established by the Land Use Plan of Puerto Rico. The result has been a shortcut in established procedures, leading to the permits being granted for commercial projects in areas designated for preservation. Luxurious apartment buildings and development projects have also sprung up within the maritime terrestrial zone, disrupting beach access, hindering enjoyment of common spaces, and destroying the habitats protected of protected species like the leatherback turtles. In rural areas, the removal of topsoil from protected spaces for commercial development purposes undermines forest and green space conservation. In recent times, due to inefficiency and the inaction of our environmental protection agencies, Puerto Rico has become a battleground for environmental struggles. And once again, the people have taken upon themselves the task of fighting against the de facto privatization of public spaces. Senate Bill 1216, aimed at creating the Bill of Rights of the Forest and Cars, is a response to the environmental pressure from developers and the inaction of the government agencies responsible for the protection. Senator Rivera Lazo set out to construct legislative pieces that will simultaneously safeguard our natural resources from exploitation and address the effect of climate change in Puerto Rico. To draft this measure, The Constitution of Ecuador and the laws of Bolivia serve as notable inspiration during the process. The constitutions recognize nature as a subject of law with rights of the highest hierarchy, whose protection supersedes any individual interest. Senator Rivera Lacen's objective was to create legislation that not only reflected the aspiration of recognizing nature as a legal subject, a concept seemingly incompatible with Puerto Rican present statutes, but also had immediate and tangible effects within the Puerto Rico legal framework. To achieve this, the bill seeks to grant legal personality to Puerto Rico's forests, including mangrove forest and the karst zone. This ecosystem will be endowed with rights such as the right of life, restoration, preservation, the preservation of high ecological value, the right not to be exploited, and freedom from contamination. Finally, the measure seeks to grant standing to any natural or legal person with interest of enforcing the provisions of this law. They may initiate a legal action in the corresponding courts or agencies. This bill represents an alternative paradigm to traditional environmental protection measures, aligning with vanguard trends on international scale. The proposed perspective stems from recognizing the interconnectedness between the environment and humanity, which consequently harms the environment is perceived as harm to every living being that relies upon it. This legislative piece not only establishes several principles, but also introduces presumptions to be applied in the legal controversies. The presumption of high ecological value has the tangible effect of placing the burden of proof on the accused party when allegations of harms to the protected ecosystems arise. Additionally, the precautory principle asserts that in the absence of a specific scientific certainty regarding ecological harm, court decision has to be always in favor of the environment. To address the damage caused by previous legislations, the project aims to prohibit administrative reclassification mechanisms in lands located within Puerto Rico forest and karst zones. This prohibition ensures that there are no changes in usage classification within protected areas. Ultimately, by granting legal personality to the forest and the karst, this measure advances an eco-centric proposal within Puerto Rico's legal framework. The current economic system has relentlessly exploited the planet's resources without acknowledging the intrinsic cost of environmental destruction. Consequently, those who harm the nature in pursuit of wealth subsist by privatizing gains and socializing damages. We assert that the Earth's resources are limited, finite, and incompatible with notions of unchecked growth and unlimited economic expansion. The looming climate crisis demands profound and radical transformations in power and production relations. Those of us advocating for environmental interests do not oppose sustainable development, progress, or prosperity. However, we recognize that the true incompatibility with these concepts lies in the climate crisis, which, if unaddressed, will end life itself. Thank you very much.
I'm really happy that you are here with us, and on behalf of GARN, I wish to give you, you and Senator Ana all the support for what's happening next. I know that elections are coming and that we have a very short time, but the law that you were able to propose on behalf of the forests, of the mangroves, is an amazing paradigm shift as well. And I feel that bringing that debate into Puerto Rico is amazing, and through that also to the United States as well. So I'm very happy that initiative is happening, and on behalf of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, we want to really support you as much as we can with all these amazing people from all over the world for this. So we're going to continue with Ati. Ati was a Colombian activist, environmental politician, and indigenous pacifist belonging to the Arhuaco people. She's a public administrator, she's a councilwoman from Bogota, and holds a master's degree in government and public policy. In 2014, she became the first indigenous councilwoman in Colombia, and subsequently the first indigenous woman vice president of the Council of Bogota from 2004 to 2011. In her political work, she prioritized the creation of a water culture through Water Institute of Bogota and the defense of environmental heritage, food sovereignty and the role of women in their struggle. Ati, es un placer tenerte aquí.
Muchísimas gracias. En el marco de la Semana del Clima en Miami, a la Universidad de Barrio, a la Alianza Global por los Derechos de la Naturaleza, de cara a la COP.
We're going to have simultaneous translation with Ati.
Just a minute, please.
Okay.
Can't do everything. Okay. Okay, a ver.
Do you need her to start again?
Yes, please.
Ati, perdón, repite por favor, para que todos mis colegas
Disculpe, no, empezar de nuevo.
Perfecto.
Un gusto estar en la
It's a pleasure
Semana
to be
del
here
Clima en
In
Miami
the week of climate in Miami,
con la Alianza Global por los Derechos
with
de
the
la
Global
Naturaleza,
Alliance for Rights of Nature,
de cara a la COP16 y a
before
Brasil
COP16
2030.
and Brazil 2030.
Quiero proyectar un profundo respeto aquí.
I
Traigo
want
una presentación
Offer a presentation with due respect.
al saber femenino de los
This
pueblos
is the
indígenas.
female knowledge of the indigenous people.
El 80% de la biodiversidad,
80% of biodiversity,
que será el tema central de esta COP,
which is the core topic for COP,
tiene que ver con esa biodiversidad y su estrecha relación con la
Has to
diversidad
do
cultural.
with biodiversity and its close relationship to cultural diversity.
A todas las madres,
So all the
abuelas,
mothers,
bisabuelas,
grandmothers,
que nos han
great-grandmothers
transmitido la
that
lengua,
have conveyed
el amor, el
our
cuidado por la
language
tierra.
and love for the earth.
Nuestro gran desafío es
Our
la
major
justicia
challenge
epistémica,
Is the epistemic
ontológica y política.
ontological justice and political justice.
Voy a presentar brevemente lo
I am
que
briefly
significa
going to
para los
describe
pueblos de la Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. Yo
What
soy del
this
pueblo
means
Arhuaco.
For the Sierra Nevada people, I am from the Arahuaco people.
La tierra como fuente del derecho,
Earth as a source of rights.
lo que se conoce como la ley de origen,
What is known as the law of origin.
y la tierra como fuente del conocimiento.
And earth as a source of knowledge.
Esto significa una democracia, una economía y una
involves
cultura de la tierra.
Democracy, land and culture of earth.
Y también la importancia de poder
And also the importance
traducir esta cosmología,
being able to
estos
translate
conceptos
these
a
concepts
políticas públicas para
and
una
cosmology
ciudad como Bogotá.
into public policies such as the city of Bogota.
Mi agradecimiento por
I am very grateful. I
quienes
give my thanks.
con su voto me han elegido en
those
3
Have
oportunidades.
elected me
Hemos
with their
creado
votes
un
3
espacio
times.
de
We have
diálogo
created a space of
con la
dialogue
academia, con el
with the
movimiento
academic
social,
sector,
con
with
el
social
movimiento
movements,
ambiental,
with the
con el
environmental
movimiento
movements,
feminista en
with the
sus
feminist
diversas
movement
presentaciones
in its various
para
presentations
proponer una agenda
to propose an
del buen
agenda
vivir y los derechos
of
de la
proper
naturaleza.
living and the rights of nature.
Voy a proyectar
And I'm
allí
going to now
el mapa de
show on the
Colombia
screen the map of Colombia
y traerles un saludo de
and bring
los
greetings
movimientos de base
from the
que reivindican
movements that vindicate
los derechos de la
the
naturaleza.
rights of nature.
Es una agenda que cada
This
vez
is an agenda
necesita también
that
estar
increasingly needs
en el Congreso transformando una
To go to
estructura
Congress
sociojurídica
our social legal
que lleva
framework
2 siglos de vida
that
republicana
has been with us for 2 centuries in a Republican lifestyle
y 3 décadas de una constitución
and 3 decades
que tiene el sueño de una nación diversa y
of a
multicultural.
constitution with a dream for a diverse cultural nation.
Frente a los desafíos actuales que
Faced with the current
tenemos
challenges
de
that we have
crisis
right
de agua
now,
en Bogotá,
which is
en
the water crisis in
México,
Bogota and in
se
Mexico,
secó el canal de Panamá,
the Panama Channel is drying
los
up,
efectos que tendrá
and the effects
también las guerras.
of war.
Estamos impulsando en el marco
We
de
are
esta
fostering
reflexión los
in
ecosistemas
this
como
point of
sujetos de
reflection,
reparación.
ecosystems as subjects for reparation.
el río Cauca ha sido reconocido
The river
como
Cauca has
víctima
been
de la guerra en
recognized
Colombia
as a
y
victim of the war in
un sujeto
Colombia
de reparación.
and a subject for reparation.
Queremos que la Sierra Nevada de Santa
We
Marta,
want the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta,
que para nosotros es una
which
montaña
for us
sagrada
is a sacred
al lado
mountain
del mar,
next to the sea,
también sea reparada
to also be
por todas las
reparated
fumigaciones
with
desde
all
los
the
años 70
fumigations
hasta
that
la actual.
happened from the 70s up to now.
Así que es muy importante
So it's very important
los principios de
to
interconexión,
have the principles of
interdependencia,
interconnection,
de cambio de
interdependence,
paradigma,
and a shift
una
in
visión
paradigm,
socioecosistémica,
and a socio-ecosystemic
avanzar hacia
point
el
of view.
pluralismo jurídico
to advance towards legal pluralism
y una agenda biocultural.
and a biocultural agenda.
De cara pues a los enormes desafíos que tenemos,
In the light of the enormous challenges that we have,
quisiera que el Consejo de Bogotá
so I would like the Council of Bogotá
aprobara esta iniciativa
pass
que
this
además
initiative,
recoge
which
las
collects
reflexiones,
the reflections
los intercambios con otras
exchange
experiencias locales.
with other local experiences.
Creo también que es muy complejo en un país como
I
Colombia
believe that in the countries such as Colombia, this is a very complex issue,
liderar una agenda que
To
implica
lead
cambios
an
estructurales.
agenda that implies structural changes.
Así que quiero rechazar
So,
también la violencia
I
política
want
que he
to
sufrido en la
reject
capital,
The political violence that I have suffered in the capital city.
porque afrontamos
Because
dificultades
we are facing
estructurales,
structural difficulties,
y creo que es importante
and I believe that it's important
entender
to
que
understand
no se trata de ser funcionales a un sistema que está enfermo y que está muriendo, sino que
to make functional a system
renazca
that is not healthy, but for us to have a rebirth
una alternativa al desarrollo.
of an alternative to this development.
Y por eso esta agenda es
And for this
vital para
purpose,
Colombia
this
y el mundo.
agenda is vital for Colombia and for the world.
Y quisiera pues que de cara a la COP,
And before COP,
en alianza con
in an alliance
el trabajo global que se está
with the
haciendo,
global effort that's being carried
podamos
out,
hacer un trabajo de
currently,
acupuntura que
we
se
can do a job of acupuncture,
reivindique las luchas locales de nuestras
vindicate
comunidades.
the local struggles of our communities.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ati, and thank you for finishing up with that note, because if you can check both the map that I shared before or the map that we have with the eco-jurisprudence monitor, it's quite amazing because in a herding world, these initiatives keep popping up, and it does look like we're doing acupuncture to the world. So thank you for being that strategic and sacred point in Colombia. We are going to continue with Mel. Mel Martin. She will be updating us on the Rights of Nature effort from Orange County and Florida in a whole. She is Florida attorney who had a career as a UN Marine Corps judge advocate. Since retiring, she has worked as a volunteer in various clean and water conservation advocacy efforts, focusing on rights-based approaches to effective environmental protection. She is currently the campaign coordinator for the statewide Florida Right to Clean Water Citizens Initiative. Thank you, Mel, for being with us.
Thank you so much to Garn and Barry Law for making today happen. It's a very important and continually important conversation to have and to broadcast, and I'm hoping that everyone that's able to hear these messages, not just say that's nice, but actually plan to do something different, plan to advocate, plan to do, go out there and make change for what is compelling. And for me, I know that Ecuador's story was very compelling, and it brought me solidly into the rights-based approach effort for effective environmental protection. And the rights of nature taught me to look outside the box, because the box itself, the regulatory system, especially the U.S. law system, is very tight and intentionally dysfunctional. So that is something that we've had to deal with when the rights of nature as both a philosophy and a cultural paradigm, we knew at the head and heart level what we want, what we need to do. And then when we try to translate it in and transpose it into the law and into the legal system, into something that will catch on and hold and make change. That is where I am right now, and many other friends and volunteers and colleagues are focused on how to build a bridge between where this movement is inviting us to go to and how to get there, especially in the U.S. legal system. So I wanted to report on how Florida has been, I guess, a legal leader in that aspect, and I have to give credit where credit is due. Lots of folks have been on top of this situation. Chuck O'Neill has led the charge for Florida, for Orange County, and has made ripples, much like Ecuador has on the global scale. But the Orange County effort is still, I would say, in the legal system. It's still being heard. I believe the appellate court had, approved the trial court's read of the situation, which meant the legislative preemption applied to them. There's a lot of nuances there that probably shouldn't get into, but I would say there's still breath of life in the argument that not only is the preemption itself unconstitutional, but this just needs to be continuously challenged. In Titusville, it's a city in Florida as well, which is just east of Orange County. Orange County's efforts kind of inspired another spin-off at the city level for the right to clean water, where it tried to sidestep the preemption, but get to the point of effectively protecting the water in the city of Titusville. That case has actually gotten good traction. It has been the city actually sued its citizens, not the other way around, which is weird to start off with. But so the city's suit has failed 3 times in different ways, trying to not have to codify the charter amendment that was successfully voted in by its electorate by 82%. All right, so and I would say it's not a city of hippies. It's not it's a city of folks, just regular people who understand and get that the right to clean water and the right to just water to be able to not be polluted, okay, is essential and resonatingly fundamental value and need for everyone. And so the people got it, much like Orange County people got it, 89%. Some nations get it, some nations don't get it, but the people get it, the people understand where things are. So luckily, the judges in that case in Titusville also got it, and even though they weren't able to render the preemption unconstitutional at that time, it's still in the appellate system, in the appellate court right now, and we're looking forward to another favorable result, because again, it's the will of the community, and they did everything right. They took the initiative, that did the petition drive. The people of Titusville voted it in, and the city of Titusville just has to codify it. They don't even have to do anything, but maybe intervene in a later lawsuit or something, not defend it as well. But the city of Titusville is just not wanting to codify it. So I'm looking forward to reporting good news later on or soon. But so the state of Florida, kind of learning from all those learning lessons, has realized, okay, we have to get over the preemption. All right. And the only way to do that is to amend the state constitution with something very clear and precise to demonstrate our priorities as a people for a healthy environment is clearly over the rights of profiteers to pollute, to damage and destroy and degrade our shared, natural resources, the ecosystems, you name it, the nature that we all need. So if you can imagine two circles, the Venn diagram type of thing, where you have a human right to a healthy environment for the human use and benefit. So what we really need, what we like to do, we like to drink, we like to fish, we like to swim, that type of thing. That is that's pretty much codified and brought through in our current regulatory system to an extent. Not really, but that's the theory, right? So you have what humans need from nature. Then you have the rights of nature and what nature needs to exist and thrive and evolve and regenerate and things like that. So there is a nice overlap that we have pursued to build that bridge that I was talking about before, where we can use the human right to what nature needs. Because as the science has proven and continues to grow and prove, we are interconnected, a healthy environment equals a healthy economy, a healthy everything. So the science is there, we just have to embrace it into our human rights and go from there. So that's why we, at the state level, have incorporated a constitutional amendment for the right to clean water, but it includes the right to healthy aquatic ecosystems. And the way we wrote it is both egocentric and ecocentric. So we have them both in there to ensure that the habitats and the wildlife itself are both taken care of under the amendment. And what's nice about the constitutional amendment is this: we are able to make it a fundamental right. And as you might know, there are many different rights. When you're talking about a right, it means different things to different people, and even in the law. You have the right to be heard, you have the right to due process, and you have the right to, certain performances or this or that, right? The nice thing about going via constitutional route at the state level is that we can declare it as a fundamental right, akin to our civil liberties of speech, practicing the religion you want to, assembly, the stuff that we take for granted and brand ourselves for the Americans as vital to our very being, our very identity. And it's ironic because we also kind of need to drink clean water and breathe clean air, etc. So there's an implied argument there for other litigation purposes. But when we're talking about putting it expressly into the Constitution, it allows us to say, hey, courts, we said it very clearly, there's no more wiggle room, okay? The courts have unfortunately treated the litigation that comes at it from an implied approach, implied rights, not very well. And that's the court system in the US, and it's growing more toward that trend. But to put it explicitly into a constitutional provision, putting it into the Bill of Rights section, the Declaration of Rights in Article 1 in Florida's Constitution, gives it that fundamental value. Saying that it's fundamental also gives it that fundamental value. And what that does, it gives a hierarchy of rights from other rights that other, polluter interests will claim. They will claim vested property rights in their permits to pollute, their permits to destroy and dredge fill wetlands. They say, well, we have this land, we were planning on destroying it for the highest and best use or this or that. Well, the plaintiff can show that wetland is kind of critical to filtration, to preventing floods, to all sorts of things that wetlands do, right? And it's, case by case. It's not like all wetlands have those types of features, but case by case, the plaintiff is able to say this body of water, to include wetlands and to include the aquifer, we have the right to a healthy, clean and healthy water, aquatic ecosystem. And that is more fundamental to the Florida people that it is your right to destroy it. And it's that clarity that is going to be the change maker, at least in Florida and other states that are planning to use this approach. So we're hoping for good things, and we're looking forward to, perhaps the rights of nature movement, embracing this approach for for U.S. law system-like countries. So thank you so much again for
Thank you, Will, for sharing this, and I just want to share that I've had to travel these days throughout the U.S., and I was in Cleveland, where Ohio has also preempted the rights of nature. And I felt in many ways that the U.S. public is so skeptic about the rights of nature because of this preemption. I just want to share that 10 years ago I came to the U.S. and we had Fox News cover our story, and they said, "Can you believe these hippies? They're saying that the nature has the right to exist." And I was thinking, that's very crazy. If nature doesn't exist, neither do you. So we're not such hippies. So I just want to mention this Mahatma Gandhi's quote, and it says, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win." So I think that we are at that stage with the preemption laws, that they are fighting us, and that's just a measure of success. So I just want to thank you for that. And having said that, I would like to give the floor to Carlos Guimano. Guillermo, is that how I'm pronouncing it? Gaimo. I don't speak Papiamento, sorry. But Carlos is a politician. He's from Raíz, from the political party of Raíz, legislative lawyer and advisor to the Ministry of Transport, Integrity, Nature, and Elderly Affairs of Aruba. His main political purpose is to establish a better functioning democracy by increasing government transparency, improving citizen participation, and reforming the Aruba electoral system. We met with Carlos last year, and I know that he's a pivotal actor in the change of the amendment of the Constitution of Aruba, and we would love to hear from him, Carlos. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am happy to be here. As Natalia said, my name is Carlos Gaimo. I am a legislative lawyer, and I currently work as a policy and legal advisor at the Ministry of Nature and at the Bureau of Minister Ursula Adams. And the government of Aruba is proposing to recognize the rights of nature in our constitution. I would like to tell you a little bit about why we want to do this. Aruba is a country, an island, part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the size of Aruba is about 69 square kilometers. We have a population of about 110,000 citizens, and in a good year, we will receive about 10 times that many stayover tourists. And then add to that a couple of 100,000 cruise ship tourists that come for the day. So our economy is largely based on tourism. It has grown very much, and being a small island, the developments are very visible. Like infrastructural changes, you will see it. It will always be nearby. And it has grown so much, and Arubans love tourists, but we need balance. We need balance about how we protect nature, how we live with nature, how we build with nature. Our tourism sector is actually based on nature. Why do tourists come? Those beaches, what are they? So we need a change of vision in how we see nature. And what better way to do that than recognizing the rights of nature in the legal blueprint of your country, which is the Constitution. So the initiative of this came from Minister Adams, and it's part of the government program for the year, the Coalition Agreement. So last year, the first concept was made for the legislation to implement the rights of nature in the Constitution. And we recently held a public consultation on it, which means that we actually put the concept online. Everybody could go online, give their comments, give their feedbacks. We did live sessions. We went to some neighborhoods, talked to the people, listened to their points, give presentations. We sat down with lawyers, judges, the commercial sector, very relevant. The NGOs. a very intense process of consultation. And what this does, it helps us to make a better product that actually works. And we also need more support. It needs to be accepted. We need awareness and the support, because to put something in the Constitution requires 2/3 of Parliament to approve it. Our Constitution has never been amended yet. So we started very early trying to garner support. Natalia was there the first time Minister Adams went to Parliament to get the first presentation, was April of 2023. So the process is ongoing. The consultation has just finished, so we are going to be implementing much of the feedback we received. One of the things is we need to give a lot more explanation. You know, what may be obvious to the people here in the room, once you go out into the public, you get questions and you realize you have more explaining to do. Our laws come with explanatory notes, and I'm sure it's going to be like 2 or 3 times as long as it is right now, so we have a lot of work to do. But it is also very important. The session, when you hear from judges, it's also very crucial to hear from them what they can really do with the legislation, because it's also a very new concept in our legal system. Being part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, we have a Dutch legal system, and rights of nature is a completely new thing. You know, it's being talked about in the Netherlands too. We're hoping to inspire more countries within the kingdom to recognize the rights of nature in the constitutions. But we have a way to go, but we are very positive. And I would also like to highlight that part of our concept includes what the United Nations General Assembly recognized in 2022, which is the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable living environment. I heard a very similar approach from Mel. But this to us has been very crucial, because it shows the interconnectedness with the well-being of people and nature. And during the consultation, this also proved to be a very strong point. You cannot guarantee a clean, healthy, and sustainable living environment without taking proper care of nature, without recognizing its rights. So that for us brought it full circle. It does bring some extra challenges, but we are definitely positive, and we will keep doing our best to garner enough support to make this a reality, hopefully later this year, and to be another country that recognizes the rights of nature in the Constitution. And we hope that this goes on. This is truly an international movement. Nature knows no borders. We have our country borders, but that's not the same for nature. So I'm very happy to be here also, and I would like to thank everybody for being here.
Thank you for getting Aruba to lead this movement as well. In the map, Aruba is like so tiny sometimes that you cannot see it.
Yes.
But for us, it's like really leading the way in many ways, because we are really hoping and waiting to celebrate, have the second country in the world to recognize the rights of nature, getting that into hopefully the Netherlands as well. You know, as you were saying, just taking it to other countries. And just to tell you, especially because we have lawyers here at the table, when we were at the constitutional process in Ecuador, many of our environmental lawyers were very opposed to this. And it's because they were taught in school how to do environmental law. And environmental law just is telling you how many times you can hit your slave. You know, pollute the water with that much mercury. They're not telling you, or the law, environmental law is not telling you, do not pollute the water. So we are proposing a change of paradigm, and we are not proposing a new conservation tool, like no more protected areas. We're proposing a change in our relationship with nature itself, with everything, like with the palms, the trees outside, with absolutely all of nature that surrounds us. So that paradigm shift, sometimes we get opposition from the lawyers. That's the hardest one. But I think that most people it's very rational to understand that nature is alive, it has the right to exist, of course, because we are nature. And who best to talk about that than Casey? I want to introduce Casey. So we have Casey Kampornik. She's a wisdom keeper, speaker, author, actor, and drum keeper of the Ponca Pata Women's Scout Dance Society. Casey Hornick is an elder of the Ponca Nation of Oklahoma and has been on the forefront of the global indigenous rights of nature movement for over a decade. Instrumental in the drafting of the International Indigenous Women's Treaty, protecting the rights of Mother Earth, and the adoption of the first rights of nature and rights of rivers statutes by a tribal nation of Turtle Island. Casey is firm in the knowledge that indigenous solutions are the answer to the climate chaos. Casey is a board member of the Movement Rights, Women's and Climate Action Network, Earthworks, and a chairwoman of the Indigenous Council of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. Thank you, Casey, for being with us.
Oklahoma. I'm Ponca, a Ponca woman from the occupied territory of Oklahoma. And I first want to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Seminole Nation here in the state of Florida on Turtle Island. And also to say thank you to Berry University and to Garn as well as the city of Miami. By the way, it's Miami in the language of the people that it's named for. They are the Miami people. And then also the state here. Not so much the federal, I'm gonna leave that. I think the most important thing to me that when Natty was giving that beautiful introduction, and thank you for that, and thank you for the wisdom each one of you has shared, and our interpreter, thank you very much. That for me the most important thing is that I'm a survivor of the Holocaust of the what is called the Americas. At the time of my grandfathers being the age of these little boys back there, my people were forcibly removed from Nebraska, now called Nebraska, South Dakota area. He was forced to walk 700 miles without food and water that was adequate. They could drink from the creeks. There was a little bit of food that was that the U.S. Army gave him. 1 in 3 of my people died on that trip. 1 in 3 died once we were put into the hostile territory that belonged to others that Wakanda had allowed them to caretake for the Great Spirit. And so when I want to be introduced, I want to help you to fully understand where I come from. Because at this moment, the Ponca, which means sacred head, are now being influenced to the point of genocide by the extractive industry in our territory, by ConocoPhillips. I believe that the extractive industry should be called out as mass murderers. I really can't I can't look at that situation without saying that as a Ponca woman, and my most important title is Mama, Grandma, Great-Grandma, Sister, Auntie, and gonna be an ancestor of generations to come that also should have the right to eat healthy food, to breathe healthy air, to feel the fire from the inside of the Mother Earth and the Father Son, to have this sacred being healthy in her own way, to bring health to all of us. And I thank her for that. And I ask for guidance. When we were walking down here today from another hotel, I do love the fancy hotels. I do love nature. But it's really fun. I was sending pictures home. I'd spent days in Albuquerque talking to a group out there, and it was all desert. Fabulous, incredible desert with new kinds of lives that I wasn't familiar with, and plants and mountains and dryness, and to come here and to feel this difference is to reacquaint oneself with a portion of Mother Earth that has a voice, because we live within the natural laws. We're talking about human-made laws here, including human rights. we're talking about the things that humankind, like time, right? Like we made up something that's called time, and we all agree that it's what we're going to go by because we made it up. We get to say, okay, I'm going to be meeting you guys at 8 o'clock this morning according to I don't know who did that.
Me too, we don't understand that.
I know in my language the word time doesn't even exist. It's like, you know, right after the sun rises, that's a particular, well, that's natural law. That's natural law. And that's what we're talking about here. In the reality, when we talk about recognizing the rights of nature, well, that's so stupid. And here we are kind of agreeing, well, yeah, our species is so stupid and so dumb that we really have to encourage ourselves to recognize that we eat, we drink, we breathe, we get life from it. There must be life in those things that have roots in the ground that we eat. There must be something about those that fly and that have 4 legs and that breath of the wind that's coming off of the ocean. Well, there must be life in this. Well, of course there is. And so we as human beings are growing up just a little bit. We've been these little stubborn adolescents that are all about me. What can everything do for me? And now we're reaching a stage of maturity, that's my understanding, where we could see not how everything affects us. Because if you think about that, that's a toddler stage. How does everything affect me? And we move into another stage where we're saying, how does our behavior affect those around us? Not just other humans, but how about our relatives in whatever form that Wakanda, the Great Spirit, our Mother Earth, has created for us to interact with. And I was walking along with the rest of you this morning, and I felt back a little bit because there was a mockingbird that was there. And the songs were so beautiful. And I was just listening to the different songs that the mockingbird had. And she had taken it from many other bird nations because she loved the beauty in what they were doing. And that's kind of us. We are different nations of human beings, and we are one species, like she's a bird. We're a species on 2 legs that has to realign our belief system with what is real, the inherent relationships to Mother Earth, to Father Sky, to the winds, the breath of the Creator, to the waters, to all things that live within the waters, all things. Even I always find it funny that physics are now saying, well, even that rock contains water, air, fire, and earth. Oh. Such a shock. Never thought of that. You know? Because even in our prayers we talk to the stone nation, the nation of beings that are all things that have walked on the earth eventually go back to earth and become that stone. And the essence is a real personality. And the trees too have that essence. This palm out here speaks a different language than the cottonwood does. Just as we speak different language and we have these interpreters. Among our people and other plains people or people of the central part of Turtle Island, our word for those people who understand those things that conduct the ceremonies is interpreter, meaning that person has that ability, as we all do, as indigenous people from somewhere, to be able to sit on the beach out here and to hear the waves crashing and have a certain essence come over us. But we forget that we're supposed to pay attention to that. We forget that the gift that it gives us is something that's supposed to be reciprocal. If that's doing something for us, if the Mother Ocean herself, oh, and thank you for sharing about the manatee today. It just gave me such a depth of understanding where I am. And that's where we all have to be. We have to be informed from the earth where we are, as you all are, the waters, as everybody here is. You have to be informed from where you are, what it is that you can do in a reciprocal manner. So when I heard about the rights of nature, I was totally turned off by it. You know, as a person who's lived in the colonial laws, they have done nothing but create problems for my people, putting us on a reservation, which is really a POW camp. You know, the starvation. I look at Gaza, it hurts my heart because I recognize that what's going on there. And then to say, well, there's a law that we could have with nature, and it to me felt like that Freedom of Religion Act that happened in the United States, and I believe that was 1978, where they recognized our right to have a religion that is free from Christianity and the missionaries and all of those who had killed us. And I thought, oh gee, let's make a law so we can pray. I think we got this anyway. And so the same thing happened when Rights of Nature came along. I could not really see what the sense of it was until more and more teachings came. I work with Shannon Biggs and Movement Rights now, and Osprey, Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, as well as being the Indigenous Council Chair for GARD. Because what I could see within that is how sovereignty of the Ponca people, I was on council at that time, could incorporate the Western concepts into the cosmology of the Ponca and the teachings of my mother and my grandmothers and my grandpas and all of those who had taught us how to live within the natural laws always, and how to put it into a form that has words that the Western society would have to understand whether they wanted to or not, and how we could also be able to say, okay, our value system, such as you were saying, is not to use the word resource, but to use source of life. And if we begin to change even the smallest understandings of how we view things, then we can put it into a form here that passes through the state law, the federal law, and to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is still structured to stamp out any growth of our spirituality and our relationships that are inherent to all living things. And so we did the first, I think it was 2017, the immutable Ponca rights of nature, in a form of first a resolution and then a statute that still is something that we're having to deal with, because within the United States federal government, we cannot prosecute at this point, and I believe that will change, those that are that are non-Poncas in our territory. So we are still having to find ways to hold these corporations. And I thought of something, by the way, I wanted to mention to you. You know, the only exception to that is VAWA. Violence Against Women Act has the exception that violence against women can be prosecuted in our courts, even if they're not Ponca. And all violence against Mother Earth is violence against women. Our reproductive rights are impacted by that, our rights to be able to grow good and healthy food, etc., etc. So that's something we need. I know. But I would like to take credit for that, but it's actually, those are things that are told to us. Those are instruments when we come to these places and we share, then we're fed those understandings and given, then we get to share more ways to win. Winning. Yes! And so then last year, because we are still dealing with this territory where we have two sacred rivers coming to our territory that are being defiled by the extractive industry, fracking and injection wells, even though we've put a moratorium in our law against more fracking and injection wells, the harm is still there. And because of the Halliburton loophole, we can't always test for the things that we need to test for in the waters. So we also have recognized the rights of Niska and Nijite. Goodness. Niska is called, is sparkling water and it's clear. That's how it's interpreted. And now it's pitiful. But Nijite is the water that is red, and it comes from the salt plains. And so it has a different essence in there. But they are who they are. They are not something that has, that we need to say, gee, I appreciate you looking at the water as a way of protecting, but we've got to go back to that same understanding. We want to be water protectors and land defenders. But in reality, we're not protecting nature, and we really need to incorporate this. We are nature protecting itself as a species. And should we fail to protect as members of nature, not separate from, then our species doesn't have to be here. The prophecies tell us that at this time we have to rise and to teach and to share. But with a shrug of her shoulder, Mother Earth can shake us loose, because she will endure. She will heal. All things will go on as they should, where the great mystery set this whole process of reciprocity in place. But will humans get to hang out? That's where we are right now when we come in to do this kind of sharing together. So thank you all. Great to have you.
Of wisdom. I think that really helps us understand why we're doing this. So thank you so much for these words. And I would just like to end by just asking everybody to have a final comment, especially of there are these two big events that I was mentioning. COP16 that is happening in Colombia, in Cali in October this year, and COP30 that is going to happen in Brazil 2025. It's going to be an important moment to gather with people from all over the world to, some say, is our last chance to see if we get to hang around or not. So I would just like to ask one short comment of everybody of how do you think the rights of nature movement should be portrayed in these two opportunities? So I'm going to start with you, Margaret, and then go around with Javier and then Casey, just for a short closing comment about these two events coming up and the rights of nature movement and how, and just one quick thing, here we have representatives of civil society, academia, and governments. And of course, these two conferences, the main actors are the parties, the conference of the parties, but we as civil society, we are observers. And we all have a role in these negotiations. So what do you feel should be your role in these events coming up, and how should the rights of nature movement participate in this? So Margaret, go ahead.
As I said in the beginning, I work at the Center for Earth Jurisprudence. Okay, and Earth Jurisprudence is the philosophy of Earth law. Okay, and it was a term that was coined by a man named Thomas Berry, and he had another quotation that he was the one I showed earlier that said you can't have well humans on a sick planet. Okay, another thing that he had, actually going along with what Casey said, another one I like of his is we invented the concept of rights and then gave them all to ourselves. So I like to share that one. But anyway, he also talks about this idea of a mutually enhancing relationship and how our relationship with our non-human members of the Earth community is at its heart mutually enhancing, and that's what we have to strive for. So I think in our role, you know, it's important to get the point across that when we are developing these governance systems, when we're determining how we're going to regulate our relationship with the environment, because that's all we're talking about with laws. We're just talking about regulating human behavior. As we regulate that relationship, how can we do so in a way that has a mutually enhancing relationship at the end of it? And so that would be my short answer.
Javier? Let me, and
Esta la voy a hablar en español si me puedes traducir. Pienso que de cara a estos eventos que vamos a tener de derecho internacional
I
ambiental,
believe that these events that are going to happen, that are environmental law
nosotros desde Puerto Rico podemos empezar promoviendo
In Puerto
narrativas
Rico.
distintas.
we can start promoting different narratives.
Y partiendo de la premisa de que el derecho,
And based on the premise that
el derecho no es neutral ni
it's not
objetivo,
neutral and it's not objective,
se sostiene dentro de unas lógicas y dentro de unas
it
latitudes.
is within a certain logic and within some latitudes.
Y esas lógicas parten de los sujetos universales que han desarrollado el
And-
derecho occidental.
And that logic is based on the tenets of universal
Sujeto universal, o universal subject.
subject.
El sujeto universal que ha
The
desarrollado el
universal
derecho
subject that
occidental,
has
que
been
es,
created by Western law.
que es un derecho que está
Which is
situado en lo
a law
hombre,
that is
lo blanco,
located in white men, Caucasian men,
en lo hombre, lo blanco, lo occidental,
and Western men.
lo racional y lo propietario.
And what's rational
Y propietario, owner.
and what is owned by us and
Yeah,
ownership.
sí, ownership. Y reconociendo que desde ahí se para el derecho,
And recognizing that
Por-
that's where the law is based on,
comenzar a promover
we
narrativas
must start to create or promote
desde paradigmas distintos.
different paradigms.
Una visión epistemológica sobre qué es el derecho
An
y hacia dónde nos movemos.
epistemological view of what law is and where we should be going towards.
Y desde esa perspectiva comenzar a
And from
promover
that perspective,
narrativas
start promoting narratives
y proyectos de ley y
and
propuestas
draft laws and proposals
que atiendan
that
la visión del cambio climático, la atención al cambio
at
climático,
and take care of climate changes
desde una mirada cimentada en lo biocéntrico o lo ecocéntrico.
based on biocentric and ecocentric.
Y creo que eso sería también mi respuesta.
And that would be my answer.
Gracias, Javier. Buena
Thank you.
Correr un poco para que no tenga la interpretación. Gracias, me va a poder traducir, ¿no es cierto? Bueno, vengo de Chile, me
I
invitó
come from Chile.
me invitó
I
Paloma,
was invited by Paloma.
me dijo que había estado este evento
She
y me
told me
pareció
about
súper
this event.
interesante, sí que
And I found it was very interesting.
llegué hoy día en la mañana
So I came
al
here today,
aeropuerto,
I
llegué a
came
la
to the
casa, me
airport.
cambié de ropa y vine muy
I
rápido.
changed my clothes. I came very quickly.
Y como sabía que venía
And
esto,
as I knew I
quise
was
traer
coming to
de
this,
Chile,
I
del
wanted
fin
to
del
bring
mundo,
from Chile, from the end
un
of the
trabajo
world,
que venimos haciendo nosotros hace
a
muchos
work that we've been
años
doing since many years
antropológicamente.
from the anthropological point of view.
Y cuando hablamos de la zona, más que de Chile, tiene que ver con
When we
la
talk about that
zona
area,
del norte de Chile,
We're
la
talking
cordillera de
mostly
los
about the
Andes,
north part of Chile, the Andean Cordillera.
que finalmente el
mountain
conocimiento de la que
And we
decimos
want to bring
la única,
knowledge
es una única nación también, entonces
from
reúne
that, which is the
Argentina,
only
Perú,
nation.
Bolivia,
It is
Chile.
including Argentina,
Entonces,
Bolivia, Peru, Chile.
Lo que traigo acá
So what I am bringing
son
here
14 libros
are 14 books
donde tenemos floreamiento,
Where we have
alfarería, hilandería, tejedora,
crafts,
agricultura,
weaving, agriculture,
arquitectura en
clay
adobe,
making,
pastoreo,
agriculture,
compostera, partera,
midwifery,
música,
music,
metalurgia.
metallurgy.
Son 14
We
libros.
have 14 books.
Que estos libros están,
Craft.
bueno, son una belleza, se
They're
los voy a dejar para que los
beautiful
puedan mirar
I
un
am going
poco.
to
Cada uno
pass them
es
so
un
that you can see
mundo.
them. They are
Ahí
an
se los voy a
entire
dejar un
world.
poco ahí, pero cada libro está hecho con mucho amor. Acá hay un
Each book is
trabajo
made with lots
de
of love
de
It is a
muchos
labor of
años
love
con
for
los
many
pueblos
years.
originarios.
with the original
Eh,
people.
Ahora estamos sacando 10 libros más
We are also
que
going
tiene que ver
to
con los
edit
pueblos
10 more books
originarios,
that have to
cambio
do with the original
climático y
people and
alimentación.
climate change and food.
También, no sé, te miro a Carlos todo el
I'm
rato
looking at
porque
you,
creo que nos
Carlos,
vimos en la COP.
Because I think I
La
saw you
última
in
vez.
COP the last time.
¿O no? ¿Estuviste en la
Or
COP?
not.
No, pero
Were
es
you
muy
there?
parecido.
Well, somebody
Llevo
very
5
like-
años trabajando en la
very similar to
COP
you. I've been working in
con
COP
el
for 5
IPCC
years with
y
the
WMO.
IPCC,
También
IOLMO.
acabo de ser
I
nombrada
have just been
patrona de
designated
UICN.
patron of OBCN.
Por lo tanto, para mí es muy importante
me,
estar
it's very
escuchando
important to be listening
diferentes, por eso estoy aquí,
to
porque me
different
gusta
points of view. That's why
escuchar, me
I'm
gusta
here, because I
entender
love to listen
qué es lo
and
que
I love
pasa
to
en diferentes
understand
partes
what's
del
happening in
mundo.
different parts of the world.
Así que bueno, fue como una
Well,
casualidad
it was
en realidad,
by
porque
chance
no sabía
that I
si me
found
iba a
myself.
alcanzar el
I didn't
tiempo.
know if I was going to have enough
Eché
time.
los libros dentro de la
I brought
maleta,
the books
imagínate
in
lo que
my-
pesaban adentro de la maleta
My
estos
handbag
libros.
weighed a little bit, so,
Así que bueno, vengo con esta ofrenda
so I am offering
del
this
sur
to
del
you.
mundo, y
This
así
is from
como hay
the
una
southern part of the
profecía que
world.
dice que en
There's a
algún
prophecy
día
that
se va a
says
unir
one day
el cóndor del sur con el
The
águila del
condor of the
norte.
south with the eagle of the north are going to unite.
También nosotros estamos trabajando para
So
esa
we are also
profecía.
working towards that prophecy.
Y bueno, son muchos años de trabajo,
We have
son
been working for
25
many
años
years,
trabajando
25 years
en
working
educación,
in
cambio
education,
climático con los pueblos
climate change,
originarios.
with the people, grassroots people,
También
original
tengo
people.
algo de indígena.
I
En
have a
Chile
bit of
somos
indigenous
todos
blood in me.
mestizos, en la parte de
We are all
Sudamérica
mixed
todos
blood
somos
in
mestizos,
Southern
todos.
America, all of us.
Todos tenemos algo de
We
mestizo.
are all mixed blood.
Así que ahí yo creo que viene, por ahí viene mi amor tal
So
vez a lo
that's where
mejor
my love
por
for
hacer
this comes
esto.
from.
Ahora lo importante
And
de
what's
poder
important
sacar estos libros
about
al
being able to
mundo
edit
es para
these
no
books and
olvidar
Show them to the world
justamente
is not to
los
forget
oficios de nuestros ancestros, de nuestros abuelos,
what our ancestors used to do, our grandparents, all the
que
tasks that they used to carry
finalmente
out,
son los oficios que nos van a hacer
which are the
sobrevivir
tasks that
también.
are in the end going to allow us to survive.
Y también, bueno, ojalá que
And
esto pudiera estar en diferentes partes del
Hopefully this
mundo,
could go to all
porque aquí
parts
estamos
of the world,
resguardando una
because
memoria
here we have
ancestral.
an ancestral memory.
Tal vez a lo mejor, bueno, no sé a quién se lo voy a
I
entregar,
don't know
pero
who should
están
I
en
give it to,
español.
because they're in
Me
Spanish.
encantaría poder sacarlos en
I would
inglés,
love
pero ya
to have
vamos.
them in English.
Y eso. ¿Ah?
Natalia,
Sí, que están en
perhaps,
español.
because they're in Spanish.
¿Ah,
She
sí?
speaks Spanish.
Sí, sí, hablan de favor, ya.
Yes.
Son un estudio, igual se pueden bajar, así que
You
yo les
can
puedo
download
dar
them as
la
well.
información
I
para
can
poder
give you the
bajarlo.
info to download
Y
them.
contarles ahora que en la
And
COP,
tell you now that
que
COP,
ya vamos por 5 años, vamos a
I've been working
presentar
for 5
estos
years.
libros de cambio
We're gonna
climático,
present this
alimento y
climate
pueblo
change
originario.
and food and original
Y todo esto
people
tiene una
in COP.
estrategia.
All of this has a specific
Es una
strategy
estrategia donde creemos que realmente en algún momento los líderes a nivel mundial van a llegar a preguntarle a los pueblos originarios cómo poder sobrevivir.
How can we survive?
Entonces nuestra estrategia
So
está
our
netamente ligada a los pueblos
It's linked
originarios.
to the original people.
De hecho, hace 5 años fuimos
Fact.
nosotros,
5 years ago,
con el IPCC, ayuda de
we
ellos y
went
la fundación
with the
que yo
aid of
represento,
IPCC and
los que
another
entramos por primera vez a la COP
agency.
azul, a la
We
zona
went
azul, los
up
pueblos
to the
originarios.
southern area of the
Así que
original
bueno,
people for the
una
first
gran
time.
historia y agradezco
We have a
montones
big
el
story
poder
to tell
haberlo
about that.
escuchado porque
It was a
también me
pleasure
llevo
listening, to have
mucha
listened to you.
información para
I'm
poder
bringing
seguir
with me lots of information to
alimentándome
continue
y gracias
feeding
por lo que están
myself.
haciendo acá en
So
Estados
thank you
Unidos.
for everything that you're doing in
Y
the
le hago
United
entrega
States.
entonces.
So now I'm going to hand this
Podemos entregar a la Ati porque ella es de Colombia.
Así, igual los podemos bajar.
Well, you can
Lo
download
importante
it
es que
as
estos son
well.
los originales.
These are the original.
Ojalá que puedan llegar a las
I
escuelas.
hope that they can reach the schools.
Me encantaría ahí, si nos podemos sacar así como una foto,
Sí,
saquemos una foto ahí entregando, mira por favor, todos los libros ahí que hay. La verdad que no estaba pensado esto, pero ya
This
que
was completely impromptu.
uno tiene que ir entregando también, entregando y mostrando lo que hemos hecho también en el sur del mundo, porque este es un trabajo que son 4 o 5 años de
Because it's
trabajo.
been 4 or 5 years
Y
of
ya
work.
llevamos 3 años trabajando los
And we've been
otros
working
trabajos de cambio climático y
with
de
the climate
alimentación y
change and food for about
creemos
3
que
years.
no solamente para el sur del
So
mundo,
not just
sino
for
para
the
el mundo
southern part
también
of
es
the world,
importante.
but the world
Para la
in general,
escuela,
that's
¿no?
important for the school.
Gracias Paloma por haberme traído.
Ati, aprovecho de darte la palabra para que nos puedas decir, Ati is from Colombia,
Yeah.
and the event of the COP of the CDB is going to happen in Colombia. So we would like to hear from you as well. Ati, adelante.
Bueno, desde el espacio de los pueblos indígenas a través de sus organizaciones nacionales.
From the indigenous people and their national organizations.
Se llevará una agenda y
There is going to be an
fundamentalmente de cara a el convenio de diversidad biológica.
Fundamentally, in regards to the biological diversity
Se ha
convention,
colocado en el centro el reconocimiento de los sistemas de
which
conocimiento de los
wants to
pueblos
recognize
indígenas.
the knowledge of the indigenous people, the wisdom of the indigenous people.
En el marco del movimiento por los derechos de la
So,
naturaleza,
within the framework of this movement for the rights of nature,
avanzamos
we have advanced
en conversación con los pueblos indígenas,
in talks with the original people, with the indigenous
tomando en
people,
cuenta el contexto que ha hecho nuestra hermana
taking
del
into account
norte,
the context of our sister from the north,
el tema de los derechos de la madre
regards to the
tierra.
topic of Mother Earth and the rights of Mother
En
Earth.
Colombia, la Amazonía colombiana
The Colombian Amazon area,
fue declarada por
Was
la
declared
Corte Suprema de
by
Justicia
the Supreme Court of Justice,
sujeta de derechos,
subject of rights,
el derecho de las futuras
the right
generaciones.
of future generations.
Sin embargo, no
However,
tuvieron en cuenta a los pueblos
they did not take
indígenas.
into account the indigenous people.
Entonces, tenemos
So,
un 51% de
51%
deforestación de la
of
Amazonía colombiana
deforestation
y
is
la,
happening in the Amazon
y
in
la,
Colombia.
y la preocupación de
And
cómo
we have a great concern
la destrucción, la deforestación de la Amazonía va a afectar el ciclo
of the
natural
Amazon,
del agua,
which is going to affect the natural cycle of water,
que es transcontinental.
which is transcontinental.
Entonces, afectar un
So
ecosistema
affecting one ecosystem,
es afectar el ciclo
is
natural del
affecting
agua
the
de todos.
natural cycle of water of everybody.
En ese sentido,
So in that regard,
debemos cambiar
we must change
el sistema de planeación
the planning system,
y colocar en el centro también la
And put at the
conservación de
core
nuestros ecosistemas
the
relacionados con
conservation
el agua.
of our ecosystems that have to do with water.
Y quisiera,
And I would like,
partiendo de la reflexión que ha
Based
hecho la abuela,
on the reflection of our dear
Del norte,
grandmother who is here from the
decir
north,
que
to say
es fundamental
that
que
it
las
is
mujeres
fundamental for women
coloquemos en el centro la superación
to put at the core,
de una economía extractiva.
¿cómo superar? ¿Qué? No entiendo.
To overcome an extractive economy.
To
Poner
overcome
en el
an
centro de nuestro
okay.
corazón.
To put it in our heart,
En el
of
centro
our
de la
hearts.
agenda
Eso,
política
eso,
y
eso.
del diálogo con los gobiernos.
When we have talks with
Agenda
the
política.
government.
El extractivismo
And
arrancó
political
por África y
Extraction
fue la
started in
esclavitud
Africa.
de una población.
And it made slaves out of an entire population.
Y el extractivismo
So the extraction
ha
industry
sido la base de la
has
servidumbre
been
de
the
los
basis
pueblos
of
indígenas.
servitude of the indigenous people.
Y la violencia
And
contra
violence
la tierra
against
es
land,
violencia contra las mujeres,
is violence against
contra las
women,
futuras generaciones.
against the future generation.
Así que esta mirada
So
interseccional,
we have to have an intersectional outlook
derechos de los pueblos indígenas,
of the rights of the indigenous people
derechos de la
and the
naturaleza,
rights of nature.
derechos, debe ser un espacio muy importante en la COP16
We
y,
have to get an
de
important
Brasil.
space in COP in Brazil and in Colombia.
y el respeto
And there must be
a la
respect
biodiversidad
for biodiversity,
es respeto a los derechos de los pueblos
which is
A la
tantamount
consulta
to the
previa.
respect of the indigenous people
y respeto a la diversidad cultural
and respect of cultural diversity,
es la base de la paz
which is the basis for peace.
y debemos colocar en el centro
And we must put it at the core.
la paz
We must put peace as our center.
Yes.
y eso implica
And that
desde el
implies-
movimiento social,
From a movement, a social movement,
la transformación a la acupuntura, los
the
oficios ancestrales que nos
transformation,
regalan
the
aquí.
acupuncture, these ancestral crafts that we have been given here today,
El trabajo de las
and
comunidades
the tasks carried out by the communities
sustentables en armonía con los ciclos de la
that are
naturaleza.
sustainable and that are in harmony with the cycles of nature.
Pero desde el Estado y las políticas públicas,
But at the point of view of the state and public policies,
Necesitamos un cambio de
We
paradigma.
need a change in paradigm.
Estar en los
shift.
espacios de decisión,
We have to be
democratizar
in
el
the decision-making
conocimiento,
process.
inclusión
processes.
epistémica
We have to have epistemic inclusion
y respeto a nuestra agenda
and respect for
política.
our political agenda.
La crisis no es ecológica, es
The
política.
crisis is not ecological, it's political.
Y necesitamos estar en esos
And we
espacios.
need to be in those spaces.
Thank you.
Just to share that as GARN and with the International Rights of Nature Tribunal, we are proposing a higher level event during COP for the rights of nature with government, so we're pushing to that. And I feel that when you are talking about peace and when you are talking about Gaza, I feel that a very important message is that we cannot have peace on the earth if we do not have peace with the earth.
Yes.
So that's what we are really advocating for. So thank you so much, Ati, and we would like to hear from you.
Oh, thank you. Regarding messages, I think that a good one that has worked for us in our campaigns is that government has one job, and that is to promote and protect the interests of life, you know, and people, you know, legally and technically, but with science it becomes a much bigger picture. So government accountability has been an important message to send to everyone that's in or around the government power to do something about things. And so when you bring this to fruition, it becomes a litmus test of true loyalties. Do they care about life? Do they care about people? Or do they care about non-life or corporations' profit margins? That's a question they have to answer, and then you hold them accountable for their answer. And what's nice is that the evidence is there already. So the work's already been done. It's just really how noisy we're going to be, how demanding we're going to be, how challenging we're going to be when the cameras are rolling with the people in the room that claim to be in our interests, but talk and walk are totally different 180-degree things. So it's really holding the government accountable for what they're supposed to be doing already this entire time. But when, you know, in addition to that, we can give them the tools, the legal tools of how to get there. And again, going back to the fundamental rights approach, it allows, this is the US system again, but it allows there to be balance, to be considering all the interests involved, keeping the hierarchy of rights in place, but also allowing for important, you know, considerations like the idea of no right is absolute, right? So it allows for things like practicability of transitioning. You know, as long as there's a plan in place, a reasonable plan to transition, it's pretty much the requirements under this law would be met. But it also has to, they also have a duty to show how they're doing it. So it's not an overnight solution. However, it's an important pivot, a technical and legal stake to be stabbed into the heart of where we are, who we are, and so we can together move toward where we need to go, sooner than later.
How to be very loud.
Yes. Use diaphragm.
I like that.
Yes, you know, I told you about the many tourists we receive, but we have some more visitors. For instance, we have like almost 300 species of birds. You can even be such a small island. There's actually one little reef off the island that's responsible for a lot of the world population of a certain type of bird. We have turtles laying eggs every year. They keep coming back. And we have organizations that protect them. But a fisherman once told me, he went to a different country, won't mention the country, and he spoke to people there and they said, oh yeah, you are the guys that protect the turtles that we get to eat over here. Because when you track the turtles, they travel long distances. And the point I'm trying to make is that we are one planet, it's all interconnected, and we cannot achieve the goals by ourselves. So these events are very important, COP, very important, you know, and within rights of nature lay many solutions for the climate. So I'm happy to hear, you know, this push to let's push rights of nature into the talk about climate, because many of the solutions are within that same message. You know, you cannot, if you take good care of nature, the solutions will come.
Yeah, a lot of things come to mind. First, as an indigenous woman, I think that it's very important for us to call on the United Nations in every instance to implement what has been signed onto by every state, nation in the world, which is the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It's there, it's in place. And so if we can begin to make sure that that is implemented, and then the keystone within that is that we are a sovereign people. So I would like to see the elevation of the indigenous people's voice in the United Nations, and I would like to see the elevation of women's voices in the United Nations be elevated, and to encourage those to understand that if we have free, prior, and informed consent, if we have rights of nature implemented within our constitutions, within our statutes, then that protects all of our neighbors. So it's important that the countries are doing this. It's very important that the countries are doing this. But within each and every country, for instance, the United States, there are over 500 different sovereign nations that have the opportunity to pass these statutes and resolutions and create these islands on this great turtle island that then encourages the people that you're going to see around the Great Lakes and those in the Mother Ocean that already have those. So I would like to see those things uplifted in the United Nations with the Global Alliance on the Rights of Nature, having more and more people sign on to the Indigenous Council. I also feel it's necessary for us to call out loud and hard the false solutions that the United Nations is calling us to be able to accept things like carbon credits, carbon trading, carbon sequestration, nature-based solutions, and I could go on because those are false solutions. All they do is give the extractive industry the green light to go ahead and continue to do what they're doing. So we have to expose that underbelly, because at the United Nations there are more people from the extractive industry as a lobbying force than there is any other. I also want to point out that the second largest contingency is the indigenous peoples nowadays. And that's important to say that not only are we part of prophecy, but we are leading ways to be the solution to what's going on right now. We have that knowledge that's built within the DNA, and we're willing to share. Thank you.
I just wanted to, just right before we close, share actually a statistic that I think it shows it's very important what Casey is saying. Indigenous people only make up 5% of the global population, which is a horrifying, reality due to global genocide. I'm sorry? 5%. 5%. However, they have stewardship in one way or another over 25% of the land globally, and within that 25% has 80% of our global biodiversity. So I think that statistic really illustrates, again, the importance of what Casey's saying, that the connection between indigenous sovereignty and environmental protection are so closely related. And so it's very important that we're keeping that in mind when, again, who are the stakeholders? Who are the people that need to be at the table? It's very clear who's, pulling the weight in terms of protecting, Mother Earth. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's a very important statistic.
No, I would like to ask Grandmother Casey, It's so important, your message. As a mother, I need to know more about you. I need to know how can the rituals, your knowledge, how can we learn more from Native American people? The school needs to also communicate, because we are so disconnected in the city. Shoes, cars, houses, we are so disconnected that it's so abstract for the young generations to understand. And if the young generation, they don't learn about that, we will maybe lose humanity. So your knowledge is so important to be implemented at schools. How can we reach to you, to the tribe, to know how you connect with the fire, the air, the water, how we need to learn, remember, because
To remember.
We are you and we feel it, but we lose knowledge, and we are disconnected. Even if our heart understand, our habits doesn't understand, because the society is so strong, and what we are dealing is so hard. It's like an animal, a beast that is very hard to adjust. So how can we learn more from the 5% of people in this country who know how to communicate and be with nature?
Okay, first, and thank you for that. That was very beautiful, and you're already remembering, and you already probably know this answer, so I'll try to throw a bit in there, but I did forget something. The poles. We haven't paid enough attention to the North and South poles because they're shrinking, and these wild dips of the jet stream that are happening, that are causing a lot of the climate chaos right now, are directly related to the carbon and the poles shrinking. The ice is melting and the oceans are going up. That's really, really something else we need to concentrate more on. And Gran gets to do that. My character in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Gran, yeah, she lives there, so she's going to be having a voice out there a lot. But the other thing is, for me, number one, we are stepping out as Indigenous people these days, and that has been something we haven't done. We've held knowledges very close to us because, like an abused woman or an abused child or man, that Pavlovian experience is, if you don't do what your master says, you're going to get beat and killed. And so that has been part of our experience. Part of our prophecy is that it's the time to open. But that's up to you. You are the one that controls the media. You're the one that controls the educational system. You're the one that controls who is in office by voting them in. One of the things that we have to understand is women have always had power. We have not always used it. We have not always imbued ourselves with what is naturally there and accepted that and lived in it and said, this is what I need. And when that happens, everything changes. And that's with the human. I love getting loud. I mean, I really love to get out and be civil. Disobedience is one of my favorite things in the world. I'm ready now. If we want to march on your school, let's do that. But that's up to you. You have to say, it is within my desire, and this is how I'm going to get from A to Z. And all you guys that want the same thing, let's do this. That's what you see reflected right here.
Thank you.
So thank you all for being here. I just want to I think that the message that we've heard throughout is that we need to be loud with this message of the rights of nature, about also the complementary and the need for the indigenous rights also to be recognized and go forward together. So I feel that that's like a very important message that we take for these COPs coming up. I feel that the Rights of Nature movement, as we were saying, is growing so much, but I feel the energy that is coming from all of us, and I just want to put that forward not only to our viewers on our Facebook page, but to everybody here. I think that the world is waking up, and we are hoping that we are waking up with the rights of nature, with Mother Earth being on the forefront of this fight. So I just want to thank everybody for being here, for connecting. I think that most important part is to connect, so thank you for the space.
And how can we part of this movement as a citizen?
Exactly.
How can, ¿cómo nos,
Sí, well,
how can we?
Common citizen. What we can
sure.
do?
So one of the tools that, thank you for that question, because one of the tools that we can share is that I'm right now the global director of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. What we have done is we have actually enhanced our membership, so we have relaunched our membership. So becoming a member of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature is a great way to learn about it, to get our news, to interact. We have different hubs. So actually, Margaret here is representing the legal hub. We have an academic hub, a youth hub. We have a North American hub, a South American hub, an African hub, European, Asia Pacific, and we have the Indigenous Council that is led by Casey, that is also gathering the voices of indigenous people that want to be heard in these spaces, and we want to complement that knowledge. So going into the website of garn.org, you can definitely become a member, learn more about the movement, and also learn how to get empowered to take it, not only to learn about it and to learn that this is a tool about, we're not recognizing new rights, and nature has inherent rights that we need to push so they can be guaranteed. But also, I bet that you live around an ecosystem that is threatened, a river that is threatened. It's something that you can get organized around your community to pass a legislation, to pass a law, to pass a case. And we've seen it, as I was saying, in the constitutional level, at a regional level, at a citizen level, but a lot with an ecosystem level through rivers getting rights, and that way empowering people to go and preserve those rights. So I think that having that call and understanding that it can happen and nature is talking through us and working through us in many different ways, it's just an issue of finding the right way to do it. But the Rights of Nature movement has proven that there's a variety of ways to do so. And I think a word to end? Go ahead,
Quiero colocar a disposición de la Alianza Global por los Derechos de la Naturaleza.
I want to put available to the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature
un proyecto familiar con mi madre y mi abuela.
Project that I'm doing with my mother and my grandmother.
Estamos haciendo un jardín.
We are creating a garden.
Botánico.
A botanical garden.
De sanación también
profunda
de nuestra relación con la tierra.
For healing of our relationship with the earth.
Con el saber.
With our knowledge.
Con el poder.
With our power.
Pienso que es importante, además de todo el activismo que hacemos a veces, escuchando a la abuela, resistencia civil, desobediencia civil, recargarnos de energía, tener una alternativa subjetiva. Así que he pensado que deberíamos tener estancias cortas en espacios sagrados para poder tener la experiencia. Creo que es fabuloso encontrarnos aquí en Miami, intercambiar ideas, pero si podemos sacar unos días para tener talleres sobre cómo cuidar el suelo, cómo cuidar el agua, por qué es importante la espiritualidad, el liderazgo espiritual de las mujeres, y para ello necesitamos hacer un tiempo.
We need a bit of time.
Estar en el espacio.
And to be in a specific space.
Estoy escribiendo, pero creo que no es la misma experiencia el estar y vivir un poco tiempo, el poder escuchar.
So to be able to hear in this short period of time is not the same as what I'm describing.
Sí, en la página pueden encontrar.
So you can go to the webpage.
La defensa de lo sagrado.
Fine. Defense of what is sacred.
El corazón del mundo.
The heart of the world.
Que tiene muchas amenazas
There are many
Quisiera, frente a ese asedio del extractivismo,
And due to that, the problem of the extraction industry,
si tocan el corazón, nos afectan también a
of
todos.
course it affects all of us. because
Así
it's-
que
it's
creo que
touches our
debemos
hearts.
tener un sistema,
So we must have
una ruta de
some kind of a
activación de
system
los lugares
or a
sagrados
route of activation for what is sacred
con nuestras abuelas.
with our grandmothers.
Thank you, Ali.
Amazing.
And to finish up, of course, you can like be a member, but I think that the most important thing to reconnect is like what we say in Spanish, la biofilia, to fall in love with nature again. So an invitation for people to go back to nature and reconnect, for us to take our little ones into nature and make sure that they're always falling in love with nature again. So I think that reconnecting is the most important message. So thank you all for this space. We'd like you to share with us some food at the end before we start the event at 2 with Climate Week Miami today. And we want to thank you everybody who's been like on our live streaming today. And thanks for this amazing panel.
Gracias.